Good morning. Well, we all have a story that brings us to where we're at, and I've talked quite a bit about the reason that I got into voiceover. It's been told a number of times, and I won't bore you with all of the details. I'll just say that I was in a corporate job where the company was going out of business, and I had to bail and find work to support my family. That's the long and the short of it. However, there's a story before that that really set the plate for me to even be thinking about voiceover. And that's what I want to share with you today because I just want to help you to get a better understanding of how the landscape for voiceover has evolved over the years and why it's such a good time to get involved in voiceover. That's what we'll be talking about this morning. Welcome to the live stream. I'm Bill DeWeese. I'm a professional voice actor, voice talent, voice artist. I've been doing this full time for the past 17 years. And I'm also a voice coach and a voiceover demo producer. And every weekday morning at about this time, give or take, we get together to share a thought, tip, strategy, something to move you toward greater profitability, to help you make more money in voiceover. Because if you're not making money in voiceover, say it with me, it's just a hobby. All right. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for all the comments already on the live stream. So if you've got a thought or I'd love to know your name and where you're watching or listening from this morning. Just throw it in the chat, and I'll do a little bit of a roll call here in just a bit. So, yeah, my career started in radio. You may have heard me say that a number of times. I'm the kid, like a lot of you guys. I grew up with growing up on top 40 radio, and I was just mesmerized by not only the music, and I loved the music, but I loved the talent. There was some amazing talent as I was growing up. And that's what I dreamed of doing. And I remember my little sister had a cassette recorder, and I would occasionally steal it and kind of lock myself into my bedroom where I would play records, and I would read from the newspaper and pretend I was a disc jockey and record myself. That was my early version of an air check, of a radio air check. And so that's, from there, it never left me. That was my passion. That's what I got into. So once I completed college, I jumped into it. I worked in the Columbus, Ohio area for a number of years. Then we moved to the Chicago area. And that's where I really began to think about voiceover. I was doing mornings there at a radio station when it started in 91, and like I would say early or mid, I don't remember the exact year, like maybe 94, 95. Um, began working with a new morning partner. Her name was Beth Kay, and an extremely gifted, gifted morning partner. Not only was her humor and her timing, but she was an amazing storyteller. Is really what made it all work so well. And we worked on the air together for a number of years up until I don't even remember the exact, maybe around 2000. No, it was after 2000. Yeah, because I remember 9/11. We were still working together. But for those of you who have worked radio and you've worked with an ensemble type cast or had a morning partner or an afternoon partner, as you well know, some of the excuse me, some of the best stuff that happens is not during the songs. It's what happens during the songs when the microphones are turned off. And when you spend that many hours with somebody, the stories that you share and you tell, it just becomes a special time. And of course, we share all kinds of stories. And she had was quite a fixture in Chicago radio for a long time, and so there was her and there was our morning, news guy, Carl, and myself who hosted the program, and she would, talk a lot about her prior career, in Chicago, where she had worked mornings with Murphy in the morning on Q101, and then she also worked mornings with Pete Stacker at, I believe it was The Mix. Now, if the name Pete Stacker rings a bell, it should. He's a legendary voiceover talent. He's been doing this for a long, long time. I believe Men of Genius, the Budweiser campaign, may be his most high profile work. But I mean, he's done thousands and thousands of stuff. You would certainly know his voice if you heard it. But she would share stories about all of the people that she'd worked with, and she knew a number of guys, and literally guys, because there weren't that many women in voiceover back then like there are now. And, she would share stories about what these guys would have to do to get work, and of course, back then, excuse me, it was really we're talking pre-internet, because she was really referring back to the '80s, and where these guys would literally work their way up and down Michigan Avenue, going from studio to studio to studio, knocking on doors, leaving pens or pencils or coffee mugs or, different tchotchkes behind that had their name and logo on it. And she just talked about the crazy work that was involved in terms of just getting the work before you could even get to the real work of voiceover, just the marketing work, the legwork. And but she was also doing some voiceover work, not to the same degree, that those that she was talking about, that she had been working with, but she was able to pick up occasional jobs, and she would need to leave the radio station early on occasion to go do typically, she did a lot of corporate and industrial, type of work, but just hearing her talk about those stories really began to pique my interest and then desire in voiceover. And this is we're again talking mid to late 90s, and I was really giving it serious consideration at that time. I was thinking about it a lot. I had a very strong desire to pursue it at that point. And with my proximity to all that was going on in Chicago, it made a lot of sense in that regard. But here's the thing that kept me from pursuing it, and I think you'll see how this relates to voiceover as it is today. If you go back and look at the way voiceover worked at that time, that business model, it was far different than it was now. Because to get work, you it was almost impossible to get work without going through gatekeepers, working with a union, most likely. In addition to that, certainly an agent. And then to be able to audition for those jobs, people didn't have, or it was very rare for people to have their own home studio. And so you would typically be required to travel into your agent's office to do an audition. Now, if you are working voiceover talent, there's no doubt you do a high volume of auditions. Can you imagine trying to do that, having to physically travel from where you're at into an office someplace or a studio, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour away just to do one audition? So there was that component. Then the next thing was that if you actually got the job, if you were so fortunate as to get the job, then you would have to make sure that you blocked out the time to be able to travel into the studio where the session was being held to do the work and then drive back. Well, for me, when you consider traffic and the distance, actually, I lived outside of the city. I wasn't in the city. And so, you're talking 3 or 4 hours to drive in, get parking, get to a studio, do the work, get back. And I had a family, a wife and 3 kids. So, um, you know, at that time, if I really had wanted to pursue voiceover, it was one of the kind of things where I needed to wait tables or something to have the flexibility to be able to get in and do what I needed to do when I needed to do it. But having a career, it just didn't seem feasible. I could not reconcile doing that and supporting my family. So I set that aside. And that and in that meantime is when the internet really came into its own. Opportunities began to happen online. The rest is history. In 2006 is when I transitioned into full-time voiceover work. Now, the moral of the story is this. I gave you an example of 2 models of voiceover. There's the old outdated model where you had to work through an agent. And, of course, your opportunities were limited because of the physical distance and the travel. And then the new model of voiceover is where we have direct access to clients. It is a complete different ballgame now. And for those of you who've been doing this for a while, and if you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, this is hard. This is hard." It is nothing like what it was. Nothing. Can you imagine? Right now, you have the convenience. Again, I'm just trying to put this in perspective, because the opportunity that we have today is amazing. Is it work? Sure, it's work, but it's at your fingertips. You can literally sit in your home studio, because we can have our own home studio because the equipment's affordable and everything is available online. And so to do that old model was so time consuming, and it restricted our ability to do the things that we wanted to do because of the time involved and the travel involved. We live in a wonderful time, And I'm not trying to be the old guy that says, well, back in my day, that's not what I mean by this at all. What I'm saying is it's such a great time to do this because we have such great access to everything from the technology to the jobs. Again, with how cheap media is becoming to create, there's this proliferation. I mean, it's a literal explosion of content, much of which requires voice. And so the opportunities are exploding and are available like never before. So if you're somebody who's thinking about moving into voiceover, there has never, ever been a better time. And one of the great things is now you don't have to leave a job to do this. You don't have to lose a job to do this. You can literally grow this, a voiceover business in your spare time, whether it's a little bit of time you have in the evening or the morning, or, people find, they find the time. If you can block out an hour a day, you can make, or even less, you can make this happen. And so that was just to give you an idea of kind of where it all came from and what really it was the match that lit the fire for me. I mean, the fuel was already on the wood because I'd been thinking about, if you think about, we throw the wood out there, we squirted it with some lighter fluid, that was there because I had a passion to work behind a microphone, but it just wasn't really possible for me at that time. And then, once that match was thrown down and then the opportunity became available through technology, it was just something that I could not resist doing. And again, this is it's a wonderful time. You have access to resources, information. I mean, it's information overload. If anything, maybe there's too much information, misinformation, but that's part of having an internet. I mean, you have to dig through all the bad to dig through the dirt to get to the gold, right? But it's there. It's there if you're willing to search for it. And the business is there if you're willing to do the hard work. So, if you want to learn more about that, of course, as always, I have a link to my voiceover training program, the Voiceover Blueprint, in the description below. But let's do a little roll call and let's see who's on this morning. Thank you for being here again. I appreciate it. We've got Jim in Lincoln, Nebraska. Thank you, Jim. Yes, I did have a relaxing weekend. Stephen Oshkosh, how are you doing? Sherry, wishing me a happy birthday from Amarillo, Texas. Thank you, Sherry. Yes, it is my birthday, and friends and family have been blowing up my phone with text messages this morning, which really means a lot to me. And of course, on Facebook and your messages and well wishes here. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate it. I'll be honest with you. I don't get so excited about birthdays anymore. There comes a point, I think it was about 30, that I quit getting excited about about my birthday for all the obvious reasons. But it's always nice to know that friends and family remember, and I do appreciate it. Hey, Brian, good morning to you. We've got Corey in Wisconsin, Guy in St. Louis, Mark in Albuquerque, Bob in Reedsville, North Carolina, Janet in Florida, David in Louisville, MG, what's going on in North Carolina? Thank you. James in upstate New York. Hey, Craig, how's it going in Wichita? We've got Bernard in Atlanta, Ralph in Fresno. Enjoying your Michigan cherry coffee? Cheers. Me too. Freshly ground beans. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge fan of Meyer. I don't know if they're only Midwest. I know they're based out of Michigan, but they have this amazing Michigan cherry coffee that's out of this world. I grind my beans every morning, brew a fresh pot. It's a beautiful thing. Great experience. Great way to start the day. We've got Miss Johnny in Houston. Rob, how are you doing? Great to be back in Loveland. All right. Wade in Philadelphia. Aaron, good morning. Just made the move from Boston to Missouri. And thrilled to not have trains running in the background of my recording. Yeah, absolutely. Trains, planes, and automobiles. Those three sources of a lot of noise that we could do without. Dr. Bob in Clearwater. Good morning, John. Hey, what's going on? Pastor Don in Rochester, Indiana. Good morning. Greg in Asheville, North Carolina. Scott, thank you for the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. Rusty in the UP of Michigan. Thank you. Let's see. Ryan in Long Island. Luis in Oxnard, California. Matt in Orlando. Just booked another 5 episodes of dubbing a Turkish TV show into English. How about a bell ring? Matt, you've got it. Congrats to you. That's awesome. James says, OMG, the cassette recorder was the ultimate technological advancement. I'd sit in my room waiting for the first plucks of Rocky Mountain High to record the song from the radio. Yeah. Oh, man. Good memories, right? Hey, Keegan. Belinda, back from Dubai. Beautiful, but just a tad warm for a Canadian, I bet. All right, Belinda, good morning. Hey, Ty in Warsaw, good morning. Dan, hello to you in Clarkston, Michigan. Sandra in Dallas, Fort Worth. Guy in Missouri. Hey, Merrill, how are you doing? Thank you. In sunny New Jersey. Wally, let's see here. In Maryland. Dave in New York City. Gertie, good afternoon to you in Belgium. Diana, hello to you in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Melissa in San Diego. Luis, good morning. Hey, John, how are you doing? Albert in Lorain, Ohio. Tess in Tequila, Georgia. Oh, let's see here. Where did I leave off here? The stream just moved on me. Again, I'm not reading fast enough. Oh, Portland, Oregon in the house this morning. We've got Sunny in Sanguda, Alberta. Phil in Tokyo. Cumberland, Maryland. David in Canal, Winchester. Is a person's age a strong barrier to entry? No, it's not. It's not a barrier to entry at all. The great thing is, I mean, there's stuff for from young to old, and if you're like a baby boomer, and I'm at the very younger end of the. Let me just emphasize, at the very, very younger end of the whole baby boomer thing. That's where the population's at. So, I can record voiceovers. I'm pretty much, as long as I have a voice, I think there's going to be work for us. So, no worries there. Hey, Jolie, thank you. Hey, Matt, good morning. Thank you. Michelle in Carmel, Indiana. Gertie, thank you very much for all the birthday wishes, guys. Sunny, thank you. Linda in Derbyshire, London. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. And let's see here. Robin in the UK. Hello there. Barb in Ann Arbor. Will and Adrian. Guys, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. So, find your motivation, find your reason, find your spark, and just remember, there's never been a better time. I mean, the table's set. The opportunities are abundant. It's just a matter, are you willing to do the work? And if you are, go below in the description, click the link, get all the information on my training program. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.